had the opportunity to Skype with Katie, and her story is that she was not born a woman, but she identifies as a woman and is in the process of transitioning. She is transgender. I actually learned in this podcast that transgender is the proper term. I always thought it was transgendered with an ED, but it is not. It's transgender. So I learned a lot of things in this conversation. It's a good one. Hope you enjoy. And also, at the end of this episode, I have some phone numbers, outreach. Anybody that is looking to talk to somebody or is feeling super down or, all the stuff. I have some phone numbers and names of organizations that can help. All right? All right, let's do it. Here we go. Hi, Katie. Welcome to Hey Human.
Hello.
How are you?
Doing all right.
Good. So, people listening might suddenly be shocked because I just said, hi, Katie, and your voice is rather low.
Yeah.
You want to explain that?
I guess that's a byproduct of the fact that I was born. I was assigned male at birth, so my voice. I've been on estrogen for 2 weeks now,
Ooh.
And my voice has not dropped, or has not risen, rather, which I guess is to be expected.
It will start to do that?
It will naturally start to rise a little bit. My Adam's apple will recede. It'll naturally get higher. And so, hopefully, cross my fingers, I won't be like this for the rest of my life,
I doubt you will. You're not that now, so it's not like it would. How is it on the estrogen? Excuse me, the estrogen, is it, have you noticed a difference yet in your body?
Not yet. I'm still on the smallest dose because I need to test how my body reacts to it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like on a scale of like 0.1 to 0.4, some sort of unit that I don't understand, 0.4 somethings, and I'm at 0.1 right now, so I'm like 25% of what I will be taking weekly.
Oh, okay. So it's relatively small dosage. So
your
body doesn't freak out.
But like the weird thing is like I have like the one change I have noticed is like my emotional well-being is already better than it was.
Really? I
was in a pretty awful place for several weeks before I got my first shot, and in this last I guess 2 weeks since, or a week I guess now, since I feel so much better about what I'm doing right now.
Do you think that's a result of the hormone shot, or do you think that's a result of you knowing that you're now in process of transitioning?
I think it's that. I think it's like a psychological, like the shot didn't like increase like the endorphins in my brain or anything like that. But I know that like I am finally taking steps. Because I realized I was trans. What month is it? Is it July yet?
It is.
Yes. It would be like 9 months ago, I think, and basically just sat on that knowledge for 8 of those months. I started coming out to people and taking steps in that sense, but physically, I was making no change in my body, and I'm 20 years old, starting to notice chest hair coming and stuff like that, and I felt this immense pressure that I needed to start doing something. I know some people who started transitioning when they were 14, and they're now 17, for instance, and they've had 3 years to sort of, as they go through puberty, they're doing it as a woman, so they look so much better than I look now. And by the time they get to my age, they'll be immeasurably better than I look right now. So I've had this feeling I need to start as soon as possible so I can have as much of my life as the human being I want to be.
So it's interesting you said that you realized that you're transgendered 8 months ago, but now did you just sort of wake up and go, I think I got put in the wrong body, or is that something you've been dealing with your whole life? Or, explain that a little bit, because I think for people who are listening, they're going, 8 months, you don't, that's not any time.
Yeah. Well, the short version is it's been there all my life, and I just have been ignoring the signs or just not even noticing them. The longer version is like, there's if we're going backwards in time, 8 months ago, I was feeling horrible all the time, and I had no idea. I was trying to figure out why, and I finally came to realize, oh, this is dysphoria that I'm feeling. This is gender dysphoria. I feel not at home in my own body, and over the summer, last summer, I was starting to tell more people that I like to wear women's clothes. I wish I was a woman, but I didn't put it together that this awful feelings I was having were because of this. Basically, I've been wearing women's clothes privately since 3rd or 4th grade, and in high school I started going to sleep hoping that I'd wake up female. And if I always had this idea if I were to rub a genie lamp or something, right, and get a genie, my first wish would be to retain this brain I have, but to be born into the body of a woman.
Mm-hmm.
And that didn't clue me in. I was just this is just something I want. So I didn't put it together that that's what being trans is. And then end of senior year, I'd been keeping the secret for 8-9 years, something like that.
From your parents and everybody.
Everybody, yeah, everybody. I'd never told anybody. So finally, I was on this car ride with one of my best friends at the time, and I told him, and I explained that I do this and that I wish I was female and stuff. And then I was but please never bring this up to me. Never mention it again to anybody, and don't even say it to me unless I bring it up. And then,
why is that?
Because I was that embarrassed about it. I thought, oh, I'm this boy that likes to wear women's clothes and wishes he was a woman. That's society would shame me for that.
How did your friend take it?
He was really cool about it. He was didn't think I was weird or anything like that. He was just interesting, and he would ask questions and just wanted to know more. And then after that conversation, we never talked about it again we didn't talk about it again for a year. I thought he'd forgotten about it or something because he was that good at not talking about it. So I do appreciate him doing that. Then going in, that was my senior year. So going into freshman year of college, I had this girlfriend who was going to go to college with me. And she and I... Girlfriend
or friend girl? Somebody you were dating. Yeah, okay, got it. Uh-huh.
She and I got really close. And basically, we ended up breaking up in October or November. And we broke up because we wanted to be friends. We didn't want to date anymore. And I explained to her the same thing that I told my other friend in senior year. Basically, I wish I was female. I want to wear women's clothes and stuff like that. And she told me, well, you can be female. That's a thing. You can transition and start being female. I'm oh no, that's not what I want to do. Because I wanted to be female. I didn't want to transition because I didn't want to be a woman who used to be a guy.
You wanted to be born a woman.
I wanted to be born a woman. I wanted to have been a woman the whole time. And I just thought, because that's impossible, I'll just live with what I have. And, so then half a year goes by. The first thing we did next day was go shopping, and she bought me some clothes, which was nice of her. And I hid them home at the bottom of my suitcase, put them in the bottom of my underwear drawer, and, felt better, and that was fine for about 6 months until I got back home for the summer, and my summer is very long, like 3.5 months. So I was just sitting there, wasn't doing anything, that I wanted to do. I was working at this pizza place that was awful to work at, and the conditions were perfect for me to start really thinking about how much I hated the body I have and the person who I was. And so eventually I started coming out to a few other friends, not as trans, but as just someone who wants to be a woman. And I would explain, like, I don't think I'm trans because I don't feel like I'm a woman trapped in a man's body. I just desperately want to be female.
I guess explain that, what you mean by that.
Well, and after having done some research, this is something a lot of trans people think. It's like, there's this idea that trans people are just like, that like, you are just like a woman trapped in a man's body, and like, I guess that's true, but it doesn't like feel that way because I don't know what it's like to feel like a woman, or I didn't know what it's like to feel like a woman until I started really exploring that. But the fact that I was unhappy with my body and that I wished I had a female anatomy, that is being a woman in a man's body. You like, imagine if, like, you, for instance, woke up tomorrow with like a penis. You would feel like, where's my, female body? That's how I felt my entire life, I guess.
Yeah.
So basically, like, end of summer, I had come to realize, like, I wish I was female. Nothing I can do about it. I'm just gonna have to live with it. And then that's next semester at school. I actually studied abroad, and I was surrounded by nothing familiar. So basically the only thing I had that was familiar was me, and because I was in this like turmoil, I was forced to like deal with it.
Yeah.
And I realized, I must be transgender. So
interesting you discovered that traveling abroad. Do we have to at least comment on that pun?
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. When I was abroad, I realized I wanted to be abroad. So I sat down that night. I was just feeling awful, and not sure if I could keep doing this. And I was supposed to like write this essay for my assignment. Instead, I wrote a different essay about how about like my experience growing up and all that, and basically finished it. Sent it to like a very good friend of mine, family friend, mentor, second father type figure that I've had in my life for a while, and then went to sleep and felt a little better having like realized that. But then I had to, think, I am abroad. I'm dealing with this problem that would be difficult even if I was at home surrounded by my family that love me. I will put off worrying about this until I get home. So I can just enjoy my experience here.
Did you dress as a woman while you were there in Europe?
Sorry?
Were you out and about Europe as a woman, or were you?
Oh, no. I came out to a few of my friends there. I still was presenting as male, but I did buy some clothes with a friend of mine, and then I wore them around these friends a couple times. But I was still very, very ashamed of it, and just felt very uncomfortable and worried that like I would be called out for being weird or something, even though these were very open people. The environment I'm in at school is very, very queer friendly, and it's awesome. So yeah, I didn't like really start digging in until winter break, redoing research, figuring out what exactly I am. I thought maybe I was gender fluid, and then I came to realize, no, I'm just trans.
What is gender fluid?
Gender fluid, it's when you, sometimes you'll wake up and you'll be like, I feel male today. Sometimes you'll wake up and feel female. Because gender, it's not just a spectrum. It was described in this, by like this professor, as like, if you were to like take like all the colors of the rainbow and then like turn them into my cat's here. Hello, cat. Take it's like so multi-dimensional, the spectrum. It's not like a line and you're somewhere on the line. It's not a plane and you're somewhere on the plane. It's not like a sphere and you're somewhere on the sphere. It's like this. It's so diverse. So basically, gender fluid, like, people identify as like male one day and female the next day.
But you're constantly identifying as a female.
Yeah, I haven't. The reason I thought I might be gender fluid is, like, when things are going well for me when I'm presenting as male, sometimes I can fool myself into thinking I can live like this forever, but things have to be, like, perfect for me to not feel sad. And the way I sort of describe that is, like, if you imagine, like, everyone's happiness is on a scale of, like, negative 100 to 100, right? 100 is the best, negative 100 is the worst. And most people, they're like, you get a promotion at work, it's like plus 25, or, your cat runs away minus 15 or something like that, most people are at a zero naturally, but, like, I'm naturally at, like, a negative 50, negative 60 type thing. So I have to be, where a normal person would be, like, an 80 or 90 on that scale, I am a 40 or 50 at the best. That's the best I can get.
Would you say that's the reason why a lot of trans folks turn to drugs and alcohol as a means of elevating their moods? I imagine the suicide rate's got to be off the charts.
Yeah, it's definitely, trans teens have the highest rate of suicide, and just trans women in general have the highest mortality rates, whether it's homicide or suicide.
Homicide, I imagine, is a big one too.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of people.
Horrifying.
Yeah, and I'll talk about that in a little bit because I have a lot to say about that. I hesitate to speak for all trans people, but I would not be surprised if that was why a lot of them turned to drugs and alcohol. So yeah, I basically just realized I was trans, and then I said, I'll worry about this in the summer, and then the next 4 months were absolute hell because, going to school, presenting as male when I knew that was a lie.
To college.
Yeah, to college. Presenting as male, it's not easy. There are a lot of dark nights. Not Batman's. Just.
Well, Batman might be transgender. Who knows? We don't know.
Yeah. I did read an article about why we don't know the real population of transgender Americans, because so many people, because we have this idea that gender is a binary, if we were to simplify gender to, like, a scale from 1 to 10, 10
Sure.
being female, 1 being male,
yeah.
You probably have to be like a 7 or an 8 to really feel dysphoric enough to want to transition. And also, a lot of people do identify entirely as female privately, but they don't. Like, they were mentioning this one guy who is, like, this successful lawyer in Chicago, who wrote in anonymously or something, was saying, like, when I take surveys online, for instance, I check the box female if it's an anonymous survey without even thinking. But I would never, and I have always wanted to be female. I've always, like, admired, like, the feminine form or whatever, and want that for myself. But I would never, ever transition because my life right now is good, and I don't know what my life would hold if I transitioned.
It's got to be such a scary no man's land. No, again,
Yeah.
Pardon the pun, but to not
Yeah.
really. I mean, I believe that most of us spend our entire lives wearing masks, for sure.
Yeah.
And many of us are quite miserable in the process of trying to be something we're not. Which is why I always find it interesting there's so much hate against trans people, because I find it shows a grand lack of empathy for one's own struggle. I mean,
Yeah.
We're constantly pretending to be something we're not when we go out into the world. How is that different? As far, rudimentary speaking. So you're in 3rd grade, and you're thinking to yourself, something is not right here. And you go in and you steal your mom's clothing, and suddenly you're like, how do you... So I know that there is a great percentage, not a great percentage, there's a percentage of men who dress as female who are transvestite, who live their lives as males, but they also live their lives as females. But that's different.
Yeah.
Right. So speak to that a little bit, if you can.
It's different in that, like, well, I don't know what it's like to be, a transvestite.
Of course.
My understanding is it's a difference between, like, they, dress in drag, and it's fun, and they enjoy it, and maybe they even prefer it, but when they take it off and they go back into the real world, they're fine, they're not.
Whereas for you, it's torturous. You're trying to...
Yeah, I will dress in women's clothes, back then especially, I would dress in women's clothes, and it felt better, but it still didn't feel good.
Because you're in your body. You're still in the body that...
Yeah, I was like, I would, like, look in the mirror and see this. I'm, like, so close to what I would want to be, but I wouldn't be there. And it was like, I sort of described it as, like, you can't look away from this crude parody I see in the mirror, but I hate it. I hate it, but I can't look away.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting, this idea that everyone has masks, and we sort of demonize people who are trying to remove their masks,
Sure.
I had a neuroscience professor last semester who, she's a lesbian, and I was having a meeting with her where we were talking about this, and she was saying, I hope one day you feel lucky, because so many cis straight people don't get the opportunity to really discover who they are, because they have, like, it's in some senses a benefit in the fact that they they're never challenged for their identity. Mm-hmm. They're never forced to really examine themselves, because they are the norm. They're natural. They can live their entire lives and never once question why they are who they are. But see,
I have to disagree with that, because I think as a heterosexual female, for example, a white one as well, I mean, I'm constantly questioning my place in the world, who I am, what I am, all that kind of stuff. So I understand what she's trying to say, but
I think many heterosexual cis people need to. Cis means cisgender. You born. The sex you're assigned at birth matches your identity.
Thank you. Okay, got it.
Yeah. So cis straight people could go their entire lives and never once actually have to examine themselves. You have, and that you're better for it.
I think a lot of people don't. I see what you're saying. A lot of people don't, because they're not forced to.
When you're LGBT, you don't have a choice.
Right.
You have to go through that sort of gauntlet of who am I, why am I.
Well, yeah, because you spend your whole life with people pointing at you, going, "You're different, and most of the time,
sure you're different.
Yeah, and vilifying it.
Like, are you sure? And that's a question that I've gotten several times.
Sure.
So yeah, it's like, so she said, at the end of the day, I hope you feel lucky that you were forced to do something that you might not have done otherwise. Mm-hmm. You were forced to really discover who you are, and so I'm sort of in the process of removing my mask, and I think hopefully one day I feel lucky for that. I don't at the moment, but
I can't imagine, especially since you're at the beginning of this journey, and we had discussed off air that you'd like to come back again and talk about it once you're not out yet.
No, I'm out to probably 90 to 95% of my friends.
Yeah.
There's probably a few hundred people that know now, but I'm not officially out.
Sure.
At work I still present as male, and then in my community back home, a lot of people don't know.
Your hometown, you mean?
My hometown, yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's got to be really interesting too, because here you are, your mind knows where you're heading. You've begun steps to get there, and yet you have to, it's sort of a Cyrano de Bergerac thing. You're in the crowd, and I imagine, and you're sort of speaking to this thing of that you're going to be, and you are, and yet around you, God only knows. I mean, I'm sure you're faced with people that are rather bigoted in that regard, and you hear that. So how that must feel.
Yeah, at work especially, I've heard transphobic comments. I've been at work at this job since I got back home for 4 weeks, and I've already had 3 instances of just casual transphobia. The first was someone was telling me that he didn't like the idea of trans women in the bathroom with his daughter, his hypothetical future daughter, and I had to have that conversation with him, saying like, you're gonna have to get over it, sort of thing. And basically, and through the end of that conversation, I think he understood a little bit better, and he was like, yeah, I'm just uncomfortable with it, but I guess that's just the way the world works.
Do you think that's a learned ignorance? His fear is a learned fear. I think about when the whole bathroom thing came up, and where you can only use the bathroom if the gender you were born as is the whatever that gender is the one bathroom you have to use. That if you have transition, and let's say I'm now a man, I still have to use the female bathroom. It's very confusing, which I find that insane on so many levels, first of all, but mostly I think about when I was in college. First of all, the female line bathroom was way too long. I went in the men's bathroom all the time. Nobody stopped me. Nobody worried I was going to molest anyone. Fear is such a ridiculous emotion.
Trans people have been using the bathroom of their gender identity
forever.
People, which is forever. I was recently reading about the end of that point. They've been using the bathroom they want to for forever, and there's never once been a case of a trans woman molesting anyone in a bathroom.
It's ridiculous.
However, there have been plenty of cases of trans women being attacked in the bathroom of the sex they were assigned at birth because they were forced to use that bathroom, or they were too afraid to not use that bathroom, and someone, oh, you want to be a woman? Well, let me, do this to you because that's what you get. So it's for our own safety that we use the bathroom of our gender identity. Yeah. So I was reading, though, to speak to the whole trans people have been here forever. I was reading a thing about, in the Native American culture, people who are transgender are revered. They're called two spirits because they're believed to be in touch with both the male and the female mind, and so they and that's like a real thing that since like Native Americans cut off from the European world had trans people, and they, instead of demonizing them, they revere them, they worship them.
Many of the gods in mythologies are of both sexes.
Yeah. So like intersex, transgender, all these things, they're real things. They're not just something that, Tumblr users on 2016 have decided to start doing. This is something that have happened since there have been humans. And it's it's a neurological thing. Like trans women, for instance, their brains are structured more similar to a female brain than a male brain. And that's even before hormones. There have been studies that have shown this. It's not just someone wanting to wear women's clothes. And that's the key understanding that I think a lot of people have to come to for them to fully accept trans people as who they are.
Yeah. Well, I think people's ignorance, too, they'll not automatically assume, oh, well, that person must have been molested as a child, or that person didn't have a particular parent that showed love, or maybe another, there's a million reasons that people that don't know better are going to come up with why, right? I mean...
And some of them might not even get that far. They might just say, oh, they're just gay.
Right, which is not, just because you're transgender doesn't mean you want to have sex with whatever gender you become, or not become. Explain that, because I'm going to trip over my tongue.
Yeah.
Gender is fluid, just as sexuality is fluid, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and they're separately fluid. They don't have
Absolutely.
I have a trans male friend, which means that he was born female and has transitioned to become the boy he is today. And he was, he was talking about on Twitter, like, he said, he was quoting a quote he gets often, which is, you like boys? Well, why didn't you stay a girl then? Which is wrong on so many levels. A, he doesn't want to be with men as a woman. He wants to be with men as a man. And B, to say that just ignores the fact that gender and sexuality are entirely separate things, and one does not influence the other at all. So that's a common misconception.
Yeah, I would imagine it would be.
I know trans women who like women. I know trans women who like men. I know, and same thing, trans boys who like other men, and trans men who like women. So it's all different.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then there's like pan, bi, all those people. Every type of cis person there's a type of trans person for that.
And what's the difference between pan and bisexual?
Bisexual, my understanding, and I'm not an expert on this enough to really speak to it, but my understanding is if you're bisexual, you like men and women, but you like men because of the masculine things about them. You like women because of their feminine qualities or who they are as a woman. Pan, you like someone because you will like anybody but it's because of the person they are.
Like their soul or something.
Soul, yeah, you connect to their soul, and so you don't care what their gender is, and what their gender is has no influence on how you feel about them.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I thought it was too. Okay. So, at what point, you had come out to your friends. At what point did you come out to your parents, and explain how that went?
I came out to my parents over that winter break between my time in Europe and the time back at school.
So you wrote the essay.
Yeah, I wrote the essay, and I left the essay on the essay that I had written back in September. I left that on the kitchen table or something. I told my dad I had something that I wanted him to read, and then I went to Taco Bell and waited until I got a text message, and they were supportive, and I knew they would be supportive. I think my dad, it took some time for him to really come to terms with it, and I had a conversation with him that I don't want to go into too much detail, but when I got back from summer, I had a conversation with him about the whole situation, and at this point now, like 6 months after that initial coming out, they are like as supportive as I can possibly hope. So
that's great.
So yeah, I feel very lucky that a lot of trans people have it way worse than I do.
Well, that's why there's so many trans homeless and gay and lesbian homeless.
Exactly.
It seems it's funny because I know when you talk about this sort of thing, everything gets lumped together, which is why I think it confuses people to think that transsexuals has something to do with sexuality, because everything gets lumped together, which in a way almost I think gives a disservice to each individual person.
Yeah, and I think in a way it's, and I'm not actually placing blame here, but in a way I think it might be the LGBT community's fault because, we call ourselves the LGBT, well not LGBTQA+, there's a lot of different letters now.
Yeah.
But a lot of times we still say just LGBT, which to me I think is silly because we have 3 different words for sexually queer, lesbian, bisexual, gay, and then we have one word, transgender, that just encompasses all the genderqueer people, and this group is combined together as one sort of movement because we're so marginalized that
sure, and that makes absolute sense.
To work together, we have to form this coalition to actually make any progress.
Sure,
but now that being gay, I'm not going to say, especially like in the wake of the Orlando shooting and things like that, that it's like normal and okay to a lot of like in the world now. Like the fight's not over, but the sexually queer movement is so much farther along than the genderqueer movement. People who are genderqueer are just now getting visibility, and I was reading an article saying basically the trans movement is at where the gay and lesbian movement, like the sexual queer movement was in like 2003. So we're like 15 years behind. Now I think the rate of acceptance will grow faster, if that makes sense. I think we are progressing as a country, as a society, as a world faster than we were back then. But it's still true that we are much farther behind. And so, in a way, the T may be benefited from having its own group, because the two things aren't the same, and because they've been associated together for so long, people assume they're the same.
Sure. And it's totally understandable that you would all come together as one coalition just because it's a more powerful force to be reckoned with, for sure. But I do think it's probably confused people. But, that's what education is about, to not be afraid to learn something about your fellow human beings. It's a novel idea, I know, but for sure. So I'm trying to remember now. I can't have a conversation with someone who's transgendered without bringing up there have been transgendered people forever, and I find it really fascinating that and famous, by the way. But Caitlyn Jenner, of course, got all the limelight because they had that TV show and all that. But long before Caitlyn Jenner, there were others. Yeah. Visible others. I'd like to speak to that a little bit. Do you think that Caitlyn Jenner's transition helped the cause of having more acceptance, or hindered it because of who she was before?
I was watching a TED Talk sort of about this, or at least it started being about this, and then it sort of evolved. But I think it definitely helped. Someone who was an American hero coming out as trans, basically, I think, fast forwarded where we were at as a movement, significantly. Because all of a sudden, everyone had to talk about it.
Yeah.
And once people are talking about it, that's when change happens.
Sure.
I personally know people who their first reaction when Caitlyn Jenner came out as trans was to say, "Sorry, I'm still going to call you Bruce," or things like that. That was just over a year ago. I have friends who said that, and now a year later, those same friends I've told that I'm trans, and they've nothing but supportive, and calling me by Katie instead of my birth name, I think while I don't like Caitlyn Jenner for the person she is, she's a shoddy advocate. She killed somebody, and we haven't talked about that for a while, I feel like, doesn't support LGBT rights. She was on Ellen once saying that she didn't support gay marriage, even though she was trans herself. I don't like her as a person, but I do respect what she did. I don't think she should have won Woman of the Year. I think there's so many better trans women who could have been Woman of the Year. But on the other hand, if even one trans person saw Caitlyn Jenner coming out and winning Woman of the Year and thought, there is hope for the future.
Right.
I'm going to put down this razor or whatever. Then, so be it. Like, Woman of the Year, I couldn't tell you who anyone else who's won Woman of the Year is, so it's not that, I'm not actually upset that she won that award. To be honest, I just think, in general, she's been a force for good.
Well, wouldn't it be wonderful if one day we just got to Person of the Year?
Yeah.
Instead of black, white, green, red, orange, gay, straight, just person.
I was having a conversation with someone about like the Oscar nominations. That we have Best Male Actor, Best Female Actor, and it was a group of us, and one person was like, "Well, I don't know why we gender that. We shouldn't gender our awards." But then someone said, "Well, do you think if it was just Best Actor, a woman would ever have won it? Because we're still so sexist as a society that I think."
Only Tilda Swinton.
Yeah, she would probably.
Tilda, not Tilda. Tilda.
Stretches of probably like decades where male actor winning every time, and so I think in that sense we gender it for the marginalized groups' own sake. So we can have Person of the Year when we award it to a diverse group of people, I think.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. It's also fascinating, just the way humans try so hard to put people into groups to make themselves feel superior or more comfortable. Sometimes it's not even about superiority. I think it's definitely about comfort levels. But I think we are moving towards generations. The people being born now, for example, this won't even be an issue. They won't think, there'll be something else to hate. Aliens by then will have landed. They're like, God, I hate those aliens. And it'll be LGBTA for the aliens. Wow. So you've come out to your parents, and your dad took it a little more difficultly than your... Why do you think that is? Just the whole father-son thing to...
I think it's that father-son relationship.
Can you speak up a little? Sorry.
Sorry, what?
Oh, there you go.
I think it is that father-son relationship, and he has friends who are trans, so it's not like he doesn't think being trans is okay. I think it took a while for him to accept that his own child was trans.
Sure.
Because he didn't want that for me, for my own sake, I don't even want it for me at this point in time. I'm hoping at some point I feel like proud and happy for who I am, but at this point in time, I would still, if you could make me cis with the press of a button, I would do it hands down.
Meaning born that way?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, born
in the gender you identify as.
I want. But, so he was like imagining how hard my life was going to be, and and he saw his own relationship with me has changed, so just a few roadblocks for him, but nothing he couldn't handle.
Do you see your relationship with him has changed?
No, I've always really felt this way. I haven't just now started to define it, but I've always felt this way, and now that he knows, it doesn't change the fact that I knew, and I still view him the same, and there's like little changes. I want him to call me Katie, but I still want to be. I don't feel any different about the way our relationship is, and so once he sort of came to terms with who I really am, I think now he's he doesn't have that issue anymore.
So you will identify as his daughter, not his son anymore, correct? I had this conversation the other day with somebody, and in anticipation of this conversation with you, Katie, and I spoke about the relationship between you and your father, and I said, it's interesting because, and you and your grandfather, two males in your family, and how they, and again, this is me just sort of assuming how it must feel because I don't know, I'm not them, but the idea of like they're looking at you you're saying, hey, I'm the same person. Because you are. You're the exact same person, but the meat stick you're in is going to change into a different meat stick, right? But in general, your soul's the same, your mind's the same. Everything that makes you you. Everything that and again, I think about, I'm going to segue a little bit, but I think about like the hyper-religious who are very much against trans. Yeah. Speaking for that particular, I don't think all religious people are like that, but I'm speaking to the people who are. That they're like, oh, well, that's an abomination, but if you believe in a soul, you're the same soul. You're just in a different gooey stick, blood and corpus or whatever. So, like, you and I are talking, and I'm thinking, Katie, or the name you were born with, you're the exact same person as far as your heart and your mind and your soul. Why do you think it is that people want to all of a sudden be like, oh, but you're not, because you're going to become this other, but you're not really becoming this other person. You always have been that person. You were just stuck in the wrong meat stick. I keep using meat stick because it seems like it's a funny way to put it, but that's all it is, right? Did that make any sense? I don't even know if there was a question in there. It was more like a ramble, but
it seems like you're asking, like, why are people find it so hard to accept trans people as trans people? I think it's a lot of things. One thing probably is a lack of empathy, or they imagine they are cis, so they just can't imagine what it would be like to, feel anything but the way they feel. And so when they see someone who looks like them acting in a way that they don't act, they think, like, that's not normal. I can't imagine myself doing that. So why do you do that? That's weird. You're strange. And what they should think is, if they're projecting, their own gender identity onto the gender identity of the person who's doing that, if they were to really think about it and still project that identity on them and think, oh, if this person has the same identity I do, and I would never do that, then they shouldn't do that. Instead of doing that, they should say, oh, they must have a different identity, because if I wouldn't do that, then and the fact that they are doing that is a given, then there's no way they feel the same way I feel. I should, come to realize that they must look at this differently than I do. And so that's like, I think something that people should try to realize. If they're going to project, they should just go a step further and realize why projecting isn't correct.
Well, none of us can see anything except for through our own paradigm and our own experience and our own sense of self. I mean, that goes without saying. That's just part of being a human being. But I think more what I was speaking to is at least is how I see it, and maybe that's the wrong way to see it, I don't know, is that who you were born as is the exact same person as who you are now. The only difference is it's as if you unzipped this suit and you went and put on a different suit. If you were born without skin, right, that being is the exact same being. You're just going to put on a different skin suit, and now you're going to, because you've always been that person, you've been hiding and pretending. I don't know, maybe I'm confusing myself, but it makes sense in my very bizarre brain.
Yeah. I think in time people will come to realize that, or to think of it that way. I think in time people will come to realize that, and think of it that way, but, yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone sort of goes through it differently.
How long does it take to transition?
All my life. Right now I take a pill every day to stop the onslaught of testosterone, and then I have a shot every week to add estrogen to my bloodstream, and I'll be doing that for the rest of my life.
It's okay. It's all your life. You'll have to. Okay.
If I decide to get sex reassignment surgery, then at that point I can do that. I would, the soonest I'd be able to do that is a year from now, or depending on the wait list, it could be 2 years.
Why is it so long?
Well, you got to go to a doctor who's good at it, which there are very few, and there's a high demand.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So the wait list, if I were to sign up today for it, I would probably not get in for a year or two. But also, my insurance does cover sex reassignment surgery.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that's something that a lot of trans people don't have, so I acknowledge that, and I am appreciative of that.
How is it that it's just... Is that in every policy or just some?
No,
or is it because you live in a really progressive state?
Yeah, I think, the company that my dad has or whatever, I don't know. I'm not exactly sure why it is, but it is what it is.
It's awesome.
But their stipulations are I need a letter from a gender psychologist, or psychiatrist rather. I need to have lived full-time as a woman for a year. Actually, I think those are the two stipulations. I have to have a letter saying that this is what I need, and I have to have had experience being a woman for a whole year.
Have you started therapy for that?
Yeah, I've started. That was the first thing I did when I got back home for summer.
How's that going?
Fine. I don't know.
I'm a big believer in therapy. I love me some therapy.
I haven't felt like any huge breakthroughs yet. I'm not really sure. But I don't really know what to compare it to, so.
What are they looking for? Just to have you not say, maybe I want to stay a boy. They want to make sure that you know exactly what it is you want, I suppose.
Yeah. I guess, they're just, they want an expert in the field to be like, yeah, that's the best call. And they, I think at the end of the day, they just care about the liability. They don't want to be sued if I were to, down the line, be like, oh, why did I do this? Why'd you let me do this? I'm going to sue you. They want to be absolutely sure that this is what you want.
Yeah, America's very litigious. That makes sense. Do you know yet what you want? That's a very personal question. You don't have to answer. But just do you know in your mind what you want right now? It may change. I don't know.
I have an idea, but I can't really, it's so far away.
Yeah. So can you get on the waiting list before you go and live life as a woman and do that? Or do you have to actually live the life with the letter and all that stuff and then get on the list? Or do you know?
I don't know at what point in the process I do the whole payment thing. So basically a year before I pay, I will need to have lived as a woman. Oh.
Is it an expensive surgery? I imagine it must be.
It's like $26,000 for bottom surgery for a female.
Does it happen? Is it in America or is it off in Sweden or something? Norway.
You can get it. You can go to like Thailand and get it for $5,000. And some people do that. I would never do that. That seems risky to me. But yeah, it is in America. There's the office that I would go to if I decide to do it is in Los Angeles, but there's like one in I think Philadelphia. Maybe it's Pittsburgh, somewhere in Pennsylvania. And then, there's a few scattered around. Johns Hopkins used to have, back in the 70s, they used to have a gender sex reassignment surgery clinic that they would provide for trans people. But they came under attack in the 70s for providing this, and they shut it down. So that's sort of a kind of heartbreaking thing that happened a while ago. But
are you scared about all this?
Like about transitioning?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I go back and forth. Some days I'm like, yeah, let's do this, Other days I'm like, I'm not sure if I'm going to. The option, I never have the option that I'm going to go back to what I was. That's not an option. So some days I'm like, yeah, I'm excited. Some days I'm like, well, I'm less excited, but this is what I have to do. And other days I'm like, I don't want to do anything at all. I just want to, be done. But recently, the last week or so, it's been all positivity, and I attribute that to the fact that I'm actually making progress.
Getting the shots and stuff. Yeah.
And I went to the Pride parade on last weekend, which was fun and empowering type thing.
Yeah. So when you were struggling with trying to figure out your identity as you were growing up, and we talked that you had some real dark times, and again, transgender suicide rates are through the roof.
Yeah.
It's hard enough to be a human being on this planet, but then you throw some interesting things in the mix, and yikes. So do you mind speaking to some of that, just for anyone who might be out there listening to...
Yeah. I had a lot of days and nights when I wasn't really sure if I even wanted to be alive the next day. This idea that even when I finish transitioning, I'll still not be the perfect person that I want to be, because I will have, I never wanted to be trans, and I still don't really want to be trans. I want to have been female from the start, and so I've always been worried that I've always been scared of this idea that it won't be enough once I transition. And I'm also, since I'm still in the middle of the process, I haven't been through it, I'm not looking back on it right now, I'm in it, I'm looking around at it. So I would just tell anyone who's also struggling with this, who also doesn't know if tomorrow is going to be their last day on Earth or anything like that, I would tell them, tomorrow won't be my last day on Earth. I am going to fight through this, and I really hope that you will do so as well, not just for your sake, but for all our sakes. And I've been told it gets better, so let's find that out together. So, yeah. And even if you don't see it, you are a beautiful person. Just the fact that you exist. And
amen to that.
Yeah. So it's worth it. It'll be worth it.
I hope you believe that too.
It helps to say it out loud.
Yeah. Imagine. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about?
I could talk about this for hours, but we can...
Is there anything that we didn't cover that... I know we're going to talk again, and that'll be great when, further down the line as you get further through your treatments and things. But, anything that you want to pinpoint or discuss that we haven't covered?
I think I would like to speak really quickly to a week ago at the San Francisco Pride Parade, a group of trans Americans burned the American flag as a protest. And it's all over Facebook right now. A lot of people are like, how are you expecting, trans people to, or how are you expecting people to care about your issues if you're going to disrespect the flag like that? Or you can't get people to listen when you act like this. And I just want to quickly say, it's not and a lot of people are expecting trans people to have an opinion about this, or they're like, well, how do you feel about this, or are you going to say something about this? It's not, and I just want to say it's not trans people's responsibility to denounce other trans people's actions. We are not a cohesive group, and what one person does is no reflection on what everyone else does. However, if you are someone who has not spoken about the fact that 2016 is the most dangerous year to be trans ever, or the fact that you've never once made a Facebook post about how transgender teens have the highest suicide rates, the fact that or have you ever called out these atrocious bathroom laws, and now you're sharing a thing about trans people burning a flag, and you say, how are you expecting people to listen to you when you do something like this? You weren't listening anyway, and at least now you're talking about it. And it's very sad to me that you that you care now that there's a flag being burned, but you didn't care when there were human lives being lost.
Sure.
So
yeah.
I just want you to take a look in the mirror and say,
yeah.
Why do I only care now? And maybe I can start caring in the future. So that's just all I want to say.
It is interesting how people want to lump for terrorism is a great example. I have many dear Muslim friends who have never killed anyone and don't intend to, and yet somehow, for some reason, because there's a chunk of really horrible acting humans speaking in the name of an entire religion, my friends feel threatened, and feel unsafe, and people I very much love and admire and respect, be they gay or straight or, whatever. Anytime anyone lumps everyone together like that, it makes me crazy.
And no one ever holds straight, white, cis men accountable for their actions. They're accountable for specific straight, white, cis men actions. The whole straight, cis, white community is not at fault for the actions of one person ever. No one ever says that. So why do people do that for minorities?
Yeah. It's so easy to point fingers at other people. I mean, unfortunately, it makes the ego feel much better about themselves when they can direct attention at something else as being wrong.
Yeah.
I didn't even hear about the flag thing.
Yeah.
I try not to go online too much, ironically, because, podcasts are online, but it makes me crazy. The news makes me so crazy.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you talking with me, Katie.
Yeah. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah.
Looking forward to being back on in the future.
Yeah. And good luck with everything.
Thanks.
Yeah. All right. Have a great day. Thanks, everybody, for listening. I just want to say that if any of you are trying to figure some stuff out, transgender, bi, lesbian, straight, whoever, all of you, everyone, all people, there are some great resources. There's the Trevor Project. Their lifeline is 866-4U-TREVOR, which is 866-488-7386. There's the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-TALK. There's the Trans Lifeline at 877-565-8860. And there's also advocacy groups out there. The National Center for Transgender Equality, Gender Proud Advocates, GLAAD.org, which is GLAAD.org. There's Black Trans Advocacy, Trans Latina Coalition. There's lots of stuff out there. Please, I know just life can be hard, and I can only imagine what life is like when you're trying to be who you really are in a world of people thinking you should be exactly like everybody else. So, that being said, stay strong. You are loved, and as Katie eloquently put it, you are beautiful, and we need you. The world needs you. Don't give up. All right. Bye-bye.